How is it going, guys? Technical difficulties should be out the window. Hopefully, you can hear us. Joining me is Luke and Trevor. How's it going, boys?
Good.
Going.
Uh, this is a special show. Not just because first time on Twitter and YouTube again here, but I'm rocking the Blake Bortles. Luke's got some Johnny Manziel on. Trevor left out with no goats on his shirt. I guess weird, but hey, is what it is. I don't blame you in the slightest. Let me bring Luke's Twitter down here just so you all can give him a follow. You can read it. All of us should be good. Let us know if you can hear us. Let us know how everything sounds, looks for you. And definitely shoot your questions the entire time we are live here. We will answer them all uh, live. But really, if you haven't tuned into any of our weekly Wednesday night shows, usually we're over on Sportscaster. If people are going to be joining us here, though, we will be living here from now on, here and on YouTube. Uh, but we're going to be going over week 5 rankings as they are right now. Obviously, this week's already been crazy, so there's going to be a lot of changes going on. You can find them on flurrysports.org and see that in the bottom left. But we will talk about where I am right now with the rankings, how they compare with the expert consensus, where I agree, differ. If Luke and Trevor think I'm on the right side, wrong side, but we are basically going to be breaking down rankings from across the industry here. And we might as well just start with quarterbacks right away. Quarterback is the one position that's maintained relatively healthy. That's cool. Free from COVID, free from all that. Knock on wood, I suppose. Blake Bortles' chance getting pretty loud though. Pretty loud, at least in my household. But let's start with my top 5 fantasy quarterbacks for Week 5. Right now, I have Russell Wilson at number 1. Shouldn't really be a surprise. He's been destroying everybody. He plays Minnesota this week on Sunday Night Football, so primetime Russell Wilson at home. Kind of have to lock him in at number 1 for me. Number 2, I have Patrick Mahomes versus the Raiders. Dak Prescott, number 3, versus the Giants. Lamar Jackson, number 4, versus the Bengals. He wasn't at practice today, I believe. We don't really know why, but I'm not too entirely worried. Number 5, Josh Allen at Tennessee. Big question marks about that game, but I'm not going to rank according to if the game is going to be played or not. Obviously, we'll see plenty of updates throughout the week. But guys, where do you, or exactly what do you feel about these top 5 rankings, I guess? Do you agree, disagree with any of them? Luke, what's your initial impressions?
I think that every week we've done this. I've said probably the same thing about quarterbacks. Is that usually you have the top 5 quarterbacks, and that's who we're going to rank as top 5. Kind of mixes it up this week with Aaron Rodgers being on a bye.
Right.
Just looking at him, all of these top 5 just seem to have good matchups.
Russell Wilson probably up there with Aaron Rodgers, front runner for MVP. I definitely lose him. He's got to be top 1, 2, 3. And then Dak Prescott, maybe ahead of Mahomes, but otherwise I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, same here. Prescott maybe maybe above Mahomes, but the other guys filling out the top 5 are obviously like you've talked about, Luke. You can rank them however you want, but those are usually going to be your top 5 guys. And like you talked about, Zach, if the game goes, Josh Allen is definitely a top 5. If it doesn't, obviously he'll be moved down. But maybe Deshaun Watson. Maybe we'll see how the new head coach goes. That's just going to be a tough thing to see. You never know what's going to happen with the new guy in the building.
Right, and it's Romeo Cornell taking over. Obviously experienced, not necessarily good, but he's experienced and at least respected. That's more than what Bill O'Brien can say. I don't expect much really to change with this offense. At least Cornell's going to continue doing defense, and it's going to be the exact same play caller. So who is mini Billy O'Brien? I guess he's been with him since Penn State. Um, I would assume he tries to establish the run more. Texans' worst team running the football so far this year. But yeah, I just think it's one of those things where a big weight's lifted off your back, and I'm sure everybody's going to play at least a little bit better, especially this week against the Jaguars. I do have Deshaun Watson, number 6. I do like him. And yeah, obviously, if Josh Allen doesn't play, that's an easy promotion for me there. Um, just trying to think of any other notable ones to touch on, I guess. Tom Brady, I have at 18 against Chicago tomorrow. People are freaking out about his Week 4 performance. That's fine. I watched the game. I did not freak out. Um, Carson Wentz, I have down at 23 again. He looked a little bit like old Carson Wentz a little bit, but any confidence that he somehow built, I think gets crushed facing Steelers this week. And I have Jarrett Stidham at number 24. I'm guessing he starts. And I have Jimmy Garoppolo at 25. That would move up. I think he would move up as soon as he gets named active. I don't think he's going to be super high, though. Any other quarterbacks on my rankings or just overall you want to touch on before I take a look at where the industry ranks him in comparison, or them, rather?
Yeah, I was just interested on your thoughts on Justin Herbert because I have Aaron Rodgers in a couple leagues this week, and um, I'm taking a waiver on Justin Herbert here, but I don't. Do you guys have any opinions on if that's a good idea or not?
Trevor, why don't you answer first?
I was about to ask, bring Herbert up as well. I like him a lot. The things that I've seen him do are definitely promising from a rookie quarterback. Don't know if I can fully trust him against the Saints. Obviously, Saints defense is uh, pretty solid, and their pass defense isn't as it's not fantastic, but the Buccaneers hasn't been good for a while. So I'd expect them to play him a little better, especially without Eckler. I think that's going to be a big guy that's out. Um, I think he's definitely a good plug and play guy, and especially for bye weeks, usually top 10 to 15 quarterbacks are all going to be owned. So in the case of a bye week, I think Herbert is a fine play for sure.
I'm looking up the Saints injury report right now. Last week they were missing both of their starting cornerbacks. If they're both out again, obviously it makes the matchup look a lot better.
Yeah.
It sounds like Michael Thomas is going to be out again. I can't really find it. But I would assume both of them are back. But yeah, I like Justin Herbert though. I have him ranked just behind Tom Brady at number 19, I believe. I don't have it up. In 19. And honestly, if I had to make a decision between starting Brady or Herbert, I would probably lean Herbert. So I should move him above. It was just, yeah. I like him. I think he should be fine. I can't imagine the Chargers are leading by a big amount in this game. So I would assume that they're chasing points. The only thing is, the health of Mike Williams. Now he doesn't have Austin Eckler, and there's just a lot of safety nets that keep getting taken away from him, and I don't love it. So he's not above a top 15 play, but just looking at 16, 17, 18 is Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Tom Brady. I think you can make an argument for him over any of those guys. Tannehill obviously may not play. Tom Brady short-handed with weapons against the Bears, and Kirk Cousins while playing the Seahawks. It is prime time and it's Kirk Cousins. So yeah, I think it's fair.
I think with Justin Herbert too, it's always fun to have the quarterback on Monday Night Football. Makes it that much more fun to watch.
It definitely is, and I've been having too many of my fantasy matchups come down to Monday Night Football, so I may avoid it this week just to have one break. But yeah, I completely agree. I always seem to have a kicker on Monday Night Football too, and I can't stand it.
Right.
Looking at the expert consensus compared to my rankings, players I'm higher on, not many. Pretty much in comparison or in agreement with everybody, but I do have Ben Roethlisberger much, 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 much higher. I have him at number 9. The expert consensus has him at 15. And then the only other one that is over 4 is Jarrett Stidham. But, that's understandable. given the news. But Ben Roethlisberger, outside of the top 10, I think is interesting because he plays Philadelphia. Obviously, not great pass defense. He's had 2 weeks off now. The Steelers are pissed. Like they definitely wanted to play last week. They didn't want to use their bye week in week 4. What's your guys' thoughts on the Steelers overall? And Trevor, do you think Ben Roethlisberger is, outside a top 12 play, or are you in agreement with me? I guess as top 10.
Honestly, with the Steelers so far, I'm not super impressed. Their defense hasn't been as good as I thought it would be. With that being said, they haven't been super impressive, but Ben is just coming back from a year-long injury. Um, they haven't played great teams. Who knows? Maybe they're not necessarily taking teams lightly, but not playing as hard as they could. So I'm not super impressed with them, but yeah, Ben is pissed. I saw the reports about him, how he felt like he was really getting in a groove. He really seems motivated even more than usual. And this Philly team, I mean, they really got a gift by San Francisco this past week. They're going to be riding high. Pittsburgh is looking to extract revenge. I think Ben Roethlisberger has a good game. I think this is a classic Big Ben game. I definitely think he's top 10. I don't see, the guys at 10 through 12 that you have, Minshew, Bridgewater, Goff. I don't see those guys outperforming Roethlisberger mad against a Philly defense and a Philly team that just has so many injuries.
Yeah, to that point of Philadelphia injuries, it's wild how many players get injured on Philadelphia every single year. They need to get a new whole training staff or something there because it's just mind blowing. But I absolutely love Ben Roethlisberger this week. I think Philadelphia is not a good football team. I don't think Carson Wentz will be able to keep up with the Steelers' offense. This seems like a Ben Roethlisberger maybe 450 yards, 5 touchdowns game to me. I think the Steelers just absolutely destroyed Philadelphia here.
I think so too. And there is that in-state rivalry. It is a real rivalry, believe it or not. Ben Roethlisberger, yeah, he's mad. And out of all the injuries that the Eagles continue to suffer year in and year out, their run defense is usually pretty good. They usually have some pretty good guys up front. So if the Steelers are looking to attack a weakness, it's definitely through the air. And I'm pretty sure there's a pretty difference in where I rank Juju Smith-Schuster later on when we talk about him. But, I mean, he hasn't been great this year, but the hate has gone way too far on the Steelers team, I think. And I don't really understand why. Any other thoughts on these quarterbacks before we move on to more, difficult positions?
Maybe with Tom Brady, he has a tough matchup with Chicago, and I think another thing that might compound that is that the Chicago team can't play offense. They're down Cohen, Montgomery, and the running game isn't very effective. And that's the strength of Tampa Bay, their run defense. So I can see this game getting out of hand. As high as people may be on Brady, I don't think game script's going to help him either. That's just something I'm not willing to take a risk on.
Yeah, the point spread continues to come down. I think it's at 3.5 now in favor of Tampa. But yeah, it's just not a game that should be exciting. Like, I can't imagine this is a shootout on Thursday Night Football with the injuries with these two quarterbacks. I don't know. I'm not excited for it. And maybe it's just because of my Tom Brady hate, but there's just no reason for me to play him this week. Moving over to running backs, and we will be looking at half PPR scoring just because that's what I am graded on as a ranker. I also have PPR scoring available on FlurrySports.org. If you play standard, I think you should grow up and play a better scoring format, but we will answer questions. But right now, number one running back just continues to be Alvin Kamara for me, playing the Chargers this week. And obviously, no Michael Thomas, so he's relied on more. Ezekiel Elliott, number 2 versus the Giants, Dalvin Cook. Number 3 at Seattle. Number 4, Clyde Edwards-Helaire versus the Raiders. And number 5, I don't think I submitted this change, but number 5, I do have Josh Jacobs at the Chiefs. I moved Derrick Henry just below him. maybe an hour ago. But what's your guys' thoughts? Trevor, what do you think about that top five for half PPR scoring?
I definitely like the top four. It seems like at a lot of positions, again, like Luke talked about earlier, you can really just shuffle them around, but you have your staple guys. Um, Personally, I'd keep Jacobs at 6 and Henry at 5. Just because outside of that big game, I mean, when this team has negative game script, which I don't see that changing against Kansas City, Josh Jacobs is extremely ineffective, at least so far. And while I hope that will change, he hasn't been as involved in the passing game as I think many of his owners would like. Um, I think he's definitely 6, but I think maybe Henry at 5 instead of 6, but I could see either way.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll throw a toss up. I think you can even make the case that Jonathan Taylor could crack the top five. I still feel like the Colts are just going to keep running him. I know they're trying to get, it seems like at least last week, it seemed to be like a good mix of the 3 running backs. But from what I've seen, Jonathan Taylor is by far the best out of those 3 running backs. I don't see why they shy away from him at all. Just keep pounding the rookie, see how long he can go. But otherwise, Josh Jacobs, he's a great runner. I just don't believe in the Raiders offense and Derek Carr that much to keep them in the game where they can run the clock out or they can run some play action off of the run. So I think it's a lot of passing. That's my only problem with Josh Jacobs. I think I'd agree with you, Trevor, that I think I'm going to have Henry at 5 over Jacobs. I mean, obviously if the game plays.
That's definitely fair. And yeah, I was debating between Henry, Jacobs, Taylor, and also Kareem Hunt for that number 5 spot. Obviously, Nick Chubb's out now, so Kareem Hunt is the lead back there. And where do I have Ernest? Ernest Johnson I have at 36. I haven't looked yet, but I would assume I'm much higher than the industry consensus on him. Great, he's a really good player, and they're just not going to give Kareem Hunt 25, 30 touches. Like that's just not what Cleveland's going to do. We saw last game. Johnson had 13 carries for 95 yards. While I don't think he is Nick Chubb, I think he's certainly a flex play. And matchup against the Colts, it's not amazing, it's not terrible. I would expect this game to maintain, pretty close. I do think the Colts will struggle to run the football against Cleveland, at least for the most part. Cleveland's run defense is legit, but they cannot defend anything, as we saw with the Cowboys last week. But yeah, any other running backs to make note of here that you guys want to talk about?
I would. There are 2 that I'm looking at. I'll touch on real quick. Mike Davis at 12 against Atlanta. That defense is pathetic. They love, and Carolina loves passing to their running backs, and then the Packers show just how effective it can be, and I think they could have positive game script. And then Kenyon Drake at 13. He's been extremely disappointing, but he's playing the Jets, so that sounds like one heck of a bounce back game for me.
Any you want to talk about, Luke?
I was just gonna, because I know I gotta bring him up every week here with these guys. The Todd Gurley's back.
Is he?
Todd Gurley's back. Especially, we're talking just mentioned Mike Davis against a horrible Atlanta defense. I think Todd Gurley tears up a whole horrible Carolina defense.
I don't think Todd Gurley could have a 100-yard game if he played against like a 5-man defense. I don't think he could run 100 yards without getting hurt, like in a straight line. I just don't believe in him. He looked okay last week. I'll give you that. If he doesn't find the end zone, he's not a top 30 guy. That's where I'm at.
Well, right.
But I mean, obviously Atlanta's offense is fine. Whatever. I'm not in a position to give analysis on Todd Gurley because I'm very clearly biased. I'm also biased about Kenyon Drake, and I keep putting him lower than the consensus, but because I hate this Cardinals team, and I'm so happy over the past 2 weeks because they are playing out exactly as I thought. But I'm sure now this is the matchup they turn it around. But I'm praying the Jets win this game.
You know what? I've stood silent while you bashed the Cardinals, I have liked the Cardinals this whole time. I will stand by them. They have been disappointing, but this is the start of something good, Zach.
It's just a recipe for disaster. Like their defense isn't very good, and their offense plays extremely fast. So if their offense is inefficient, then nice, you had a 30-second drive and your defense comes right back on the field. Like you just can't play that way. We saw it happen with Chip Kelly in Philadelphia, and people are like, just take a breath and slow the fuck down. It's like you're giving your defense no rest, and that's what they're doing here. And also that rookie from Clemson, what's his name, for Arizona, he has been one of the worst players I've ever seen set foot on the NFL field. And I don't know how, because he was amazing in college. He's bad. I think he might be the worst graded player on Pro Football Focus this season so far.
I think it was actually Okuda. He was dead last among cornerbacks so far.
The Clemson guy isn't a corner. He's that safety linebacker hybrid.
Isaiah Simmons?
Yes.
Yes, he's been. I don't know how. He's horrible. It's not okay. I haven't watched enough Arizona defense. I've been watching like the condensed games just to like fast forward through the defense because I know they're bad. I just want to watch Kyler Murray fail and see like how many passes he throws behind the line of scrimmage each game, which is a lot. But I need to watch the actual defense because maybe they're playing him out of position or something because he can't play a typical linebacker role. So maybe that's what they're doing. He's just not big enough yet. Anyways, running backs. Oh, by the way, I have Le'Veon Bell ranked 25. He should be coming back from IR this week. The Jets released, what's his name?
Kalen Ballage.
Yeah.
Ballage.
Like, either Le'Veon Bell's coming back or Adam Gase realizes you need to feed Frank Gore. Let's get any competition out of the way. But this is beautiful. We could see a backfield this week with Joe Flacco, Le'Veon Bell, and Frank Gore in it at the same time, and you will question what year it is because I'm so excited to see it, and I'm excited to see it work. By the way, Flacco might get a win this week, and I'm all about it. I am all about it. Save Adam Gase's job.
All they need is to give Mike Wallace a receiver to complete that 2010 offense.
Hey, they could sign Des Bryant. That's good enough.
Right.
He's out there. He wants a job. I don't know if he'd sign with the Jets, but maybe. I think just to go back on something we actually talked about, I think Mike Davis is a good play this week, and I think that's a good call. He probably should be higher. He's been scoring touchdowns too. He's just scary. He's in a similar position as Kenny and Drake, where they're not really goal line backs, even though they do get work on the goal line. Kenny and Drake's just not doing anything right now. Joe Mixon, I have him one spot below Kenny and Drake. We called it that it was a Joe Mixon breakout game last week, but he turns around and he gets Baltimore, and I don't trust it.
Yeah, going to Mike Davis too. The one thing I'm a little concerned with in these last few weeks where it's his job, Reggie Bonifant, I believe, is how you pronounce it. He was getting a decent amount of touches and receptions, even a touchdown reception. So
he got
who knows?
On IR, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind.
Right.
Don't pay attention to him.
Yeah, immediately after a good game, he's like, "Okay, you're gone now." Thank you, because I need Mike Davis here. Here is something to talk about. Now, we talked about Patriots running backs before, how they use them, how they don't. Admittedly, last week was my first real, legitimate film watching of Damian Harris, I would say. I saw a little bit of college footage, but, it's been a while since we've seen him play football. What were your thoughts watching him run for 100 yards? Was it a good 100 yards, or what's your thoughts on Damian Harris going forward, Luke? And do you think, obviously Sony Michel's on IR right now, if he has another game like this, would you consider Sony Michel fully droppable and this is Damian Harris's job in terms of this role as a early down runner?
I would think so. Just because Sony Michel just this is like more against Sony Michel than it is towards Damian Harris, but Sony Michel hasn't really looked that good of a player, the last couple of years. That good of a running back. He had a good start to his career, but other than that, it's just kind of gone downhill. Damian Harris is a young, fresh legs too to run the ball. Bill Belichick probably already coming up with schemes on how he's going to use him in the fourth quarter of the AFC Championship. But Harris is a young guy. I think they're going to lean on him. The thing I'm saying about Jonathan Taylor earlier is they're young. They're going to teams. I think they're going to run him, see how much he can run, see how far he can go, how much he can run in a game. And 100 yards and 17 carries is pretty darn good. As being this your fourth week of NFL football, and he was hurt. So I'm all on board with Damian Harris train, and I think you drop Sony right now. I don't think he's going to provide your team any more value than it already has, depending on with whoever's on your team.
I would agree. I think you drop Sony Michel now, but I'm biased. I've never been a huge Sony Michel fan. The one thing to note is he did have a 41-yard carry, not Sony Michel, but Harris. So you take that away, which granted, I mean, you can take a great play from anybody and their fantasy value will go down, but it does go down to 3.7 yards a carry, just still decent. It's a lot less effective. At the same time, though, they had some not good players in at quarterback. So I think actually, all things considered, that's pretty good. The Chiefs' defense their run defense is actually somewhat solid. His stats might not have been great outside of that run, but hey, if we know one thing about Bill Belichick, it's if he sees a guy he likes and a guy who can produce, he's going to run with him. And I think that's what he gets with Harris, and that'll open up some more passes for James White.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm with you. Sony Michel just hasn't looked the part. Like any excuse for him to get off the field, I feel like is what Bill Belichick's looking for. And I don't think Rex Burkhead by any means can be that. They don't want to use James White as that role. So it's nice to see Damian Harris step up. Harris, I believe, was a pretty good pass catcher in college, so it's interesting to see that he wasn't really used in that role at all. And it just goes to show that Patriots really utilize their running backs in specific roles. But he should be able to, add something in terms of receiving production going forward. It might not be a lot, but at least Sony Michel level, while possibly, game script, depending, add 100 yards or something like that. But now he becomes this guy that has multi-touchdown potential, right? Obviously, Cam Newton being there takes a little bit away from that because Cam could take some goal line touchdowns, but we've seen these goal line Patriots running backs fall into ridiculous fantasy days, and Damian Harris, I think, should be treated legitimately. This week will be definitely a big test, though, to see what he can do. Any other running backs to talk about before I take a look at the comparison here?
From here.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Browns run of the Rams backfield?
Yeah, so Cam Akers is supposed to come back this week. I would assume this is a tough one. They really are going to do hot hand. Like everyone's going to get touches, I feel like, early in the first quarter and see what happens. It's my feeling that Malcolm Brown will never go away. He is similar to a Tevin Coleman-like role with the 49ers, and I think we could see multiple games going forward where either Henderson or Akers dominates yards, and then Malcolm Brown gets plugged in and gets the touchdown. Just frustrating stuff like that. In terms of Akers versus Henderson, I'm not a Henderson guy, but I can't imagine they wouldn't give Akers every opportunity to win this job, like to be the majority guy, just because of where they drafted him. Who do the Rams play this week?
The Rams play Washington.
Not the easiest matchup. but yeah, this is actually a scary matchup. We'll see what Jared Goff can do under pressure because he's going to see plenty of it. If the Rams do get up, it can play with a sizable lead. I think that helps Akers and Brown more than it does Henderson. If they're chasing points, or it's a 3-point game or something like what we saw a lot of last week, I think Henderson will probably get more burn. Yeah, this will be a frustrating one, at least for the next few weeks. If someone can emerge and really solidify themselves, kind of like what we saw with Mostert with San Francisco, then maybe we can have confidence. But they're not even game plan specific. They're just like a group of guys, and maybe something works, maybe something doesn't, which just sucks. Looking at rankings compared to everybody else, again, there's so much uncertainty. So there's some people ranking in terms of this game's not going to play, I'm assuming, or this player is not in, because I'm 6 spots higher than the consensus on Derrick Henry. So the consensus has him at 12. I would assume, like I said, people are concerned. Le'Veon Bell, consensus has him at 58, and I have him at 25. Once he gets ruled active, that'll change. I'm 11 spots higher on D'Ernest Johnson for the Browns. We already touched on him. I have him at 36, and I think I could put him higher. Consensus has him at 47. Zach Moss, I think I changed this in my recent update. I just didn't publish it for some reason. Never mind. I'm 4 spots higher on Zach Moss. Again, he was out last week, so I'm sure a lot of people are just being hesitant on him. I guess the question out of those 4 for you guys, Le'Veon Bell, assuming they say specifically he's back without restrictions, right? Playing Cardinals, which is a pretty good matchup. What's your confidence level in starting him as an RB2 this week, Luke?
I think I'm very confident in Le'Veon Bell this week. The Jets just need someone to get their offense going. I think this is a perfect time for Le'Veon Bell to come back. Because if he's still, what he was, maybe before an injury, Le'Veon Bell a couple years ago, but he's a good runner and a good receiver. I think Le'Veon Bell could very well, get a lot of touches this week, and I think he can be a great, catalyst for this offense to at least, maybe not lead to a victory, but get them going into the right direction for the rest of the upcoming year. I think they go heavily Le'Veon Bell this week, without restrictions, obviously.
I think this looks like a great game on paper for Bell. But unfortunately, I think he's more of honestly a flex play. I don't think it's anything against Bell. I think it's looking at Gase and looking at what Bell has done and is underperforming. I don't trust Gase, even if he loves running with Bell. I just don't trust his system. I think he's definitely a guy that will be an RB2 going forward. But for me, it's just a prove it outlook on Le'Veon. I gotta see it first.
Full disclosure, didn't listen to a word you guys said. Not because of what you guys said was not true. My phone was just blowing up with different stuff, and I'm sorry. I heard you guys were confident. Same. Cool. Moving on. Players I'm lower on, and I don't know. I don't understand why people are super high, I guess. But David Montgomery, I think, Trevor, you were talking about how the Bucs' strength was their run defense. I have him at 27. Consensus has him at 23, so I'm a little bit lower. He just hasn't looked great, and the Bears' offensive line's bad anyways. So I don't see a reason to rank him higher than he's really finished at all this season. Rex Burkhead, I have him at 40. 6 spots lower. People are riding the hype and don't know how to rank Patriots running backs. Obviously, Damian Harris looks like he can be the runner. James White is the receiving back very clearly. So what's that leave for Rex Burkhead? The leftovers of each role, which isn't enough. Duke Johnson, I'm at 46. 40 is the consensus. Houston offense, maybe he's fine. I have no idea. We'll see how they use him because he hasn't been used yet. Gus Edwards, I have at 48. Consensus has him 7 spots higher. He's useless to me. J.D. McKissick's another one. And then Justin Jackson, I think I need to come up on. I have him at 52. Consensus is at 46. While I think he is a terrible football player, Austin Eckler being out means he's going to get touches, right? What's your guys' thoughts on Justin Jackson, I guess? Is he worthy of a flex start for you guys? Like for you, Trevor? Is he good enough as a low-end flex at least?
I don't think so. I'm a Justin Jackson. Well, I was a Justin Jackson fan. He first broke in when he was taking some carries from Gordon. Back when Kareem Hunt was on the Chiefs, I think like 2-3 years ago. He looked decent. But since then, he just really hasn't been that effective. It's very obvious they love Kelly more. And with what they saw from Herbert, they won't go completely away from the run by any means, but I wouldn't be surprised if they turn into a more pass-oriented team. And for that reason, I'm just not confident enough in him as a flex play, unless you're in a deep league.
Yeah, I'll get on board with that. Every time I hear Justin Jackson, I think of North Carolina college basketball legend Justin Jackson, Carolina fan. So I kind of get a little upset that it's on him. But I don't know. Justin Jackson is one of those players who I don't, I do know him. I don't think I trust him though, just because he's always seemed like he's like that next spot is going to go, Eckler, Kelly, Jackson. It was Gordon, Eckler, Jack, whatever. So I don't, maybe there'd be. I don't think there's any spot where they're in this game that they're really going to use Justin Jackson. So I don't think I'm even going to touch him at all. I think it's a lot of let's see what Justin Herbert can do against what many people think is a somewhat good Saints team.
Completely agree. Any other thoughts on these running backs before we move on here?
I'll join the Todd Gurley train. Let's go. Carolina coming up. Let's do it. 2 touchdowns this week.
Okay, and then does he play week 6 or is he taking a break?
Oh, he played 6, 7, 8. You can count him down the line. Scored 2 touchdowns every game.
He's going to score 2 touchdowns. That's his production. He's out after that.
Okay. How do I phrase it? I will say, right, that Todd Gurley cut back against the Packers, probably his best player of the entire year. Would you guys agree with that?
100%.
Was that play enough athleticism to actually give you real confidence going forward? Like, okay, so if you have to gauge peak Rams Todd Gurley, right? He was best running back in the league. What percentage of athleticism is this current Todd Gurley of that player? Let's go with Luke, the big one here, the big fan here.
60.
Okay. Still not good.
We don't know how bad I was holding back 100% there. But I think the thing that sucks is that Atlanta's not good, and so I don't think we can see Todd Gurley beat Todd Gurley, and maybe because of his arthritis in his knees or whatever he has. But he's obviously not the all-pro he was 3 years ago. I still think he's a quality running back. He still has that vision. The vision is what I think does it for him. And my big thing is, like I've always said, they use him on the goal line. Because Matt Ryan cannot throw in the red zone.
No.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to be honest. I guess it's kind of a cop-out. If I had to answer, I would say probably 70. But I don't think look. I don't think I know it. And here's the problem. He is not as effective as what he was. Obviously, Zach, I'm not liking this, but I obviously physically there's something missing. I just for some reason feel like mentally there's also a little block on him. I feel like with all the hype around him, I wonder how much that factors into it too. Obviously, if he thinks he's amazing, he's not going to be prime Gurley again. But I think that's definitely holding him back a little bit.
That is fair. 16 yards is his longest run this year. 25 all of last year. Under 4 yards per carry in both seasons so far. Receptions. What's his longest reception? 6 yards this year. Killing it. 23 last year. And I'm telling you, that 23-yard reception, I remember it. There was nobody within 50 yards of him when he caught that fucking football. And they closed quick. So
that's why I didn't say 75%, only 70.
I will say, I think he is very, very clearly used in the red zone. That was a big worry for me coming in to this season, just because it was one of those things like if his knees are terrible, why would they put him in the red zone? Let's at least try to keep him healthy for the end of the year. But I mean, there's lots of things that go against that now. One, Matt Ryan is still, or he may be the worst he's ever looked. Two, Falcons clearly have nothing to pour at the end of the year. Might as well, use Gurley as much as you can now. But yeah, I mean, he has just as good of a chance to score a touchdown every single week as any player in the league. And I would say the top player for that is probably Ezekiel Elliott, but really he's just as high because he's still in the game when they're down. Not that they've been down by a lot often, but still. Let's move on to wide receivers. We talked way too much about Todd Gurley. Holy shit.
Love it.
Jesus. It's like obligatory Todd Gurley talk every week. I can't take it anymore.
I wish I could do an Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley.
Yeah, we'll call ourselves the Gurley guys.
Right there.
Oh no. Okay. I have DeAndre Hopkins as my wide receiver 1. I hate doing it, but it's the Jets. I mean, it is what it is. Number 2, Tyreek Hill against the Raiders. Again, he's so hit or miss, but I can't imagine he has a bad game against the Raiders. Number 3, I have Adam Thielen against Seattle. They're terrible. Number 4, DK Metcalf against Minnesota. Number 5, Calvin Ridley against Carolina. There's so many good matchups for wide receivers across the board this week. But what do you guys think about that top 5 at least?
I think it's very interesting this week. Seattle receivers against a horrendous Minnesota defense. I might even put Tyler Lockett ahead of Calvin Ridley. I think I like that matchup more. And I know Calvin Ridley had Johnny last week. But from what I was watching, Calvin Ridley was not running good routes. Like Matt Ryan was lucky to throw him the ball. I don't know if that's because Julio Jones was back or what. But Calvin Ridley did not impress me last week at all. And I think Tyler Lockett is he's definitely a top 5 receiver this year in fantasy football.
Yeah, and I would agree. And you wonder. I don't mean to be the guy that always looks at the mental side of things, but man, if you're Calvin Ridley, you're balling out, having a career year, and this team is garbage. Julio might not play this week. It'll be up in the air. We'll see. But I look at Lockett and Metcalf. I think this team is going to run on Minneapolis. The only possible thing limiting them is game script. But at the same time, it's Pete Carroll. So I'm not too worried about that. I'd maybe put Lockett 5. But it's tough. Obviously, when you have two receivers like Metcalf, like Lockett, it's tough having them both in the top 5.
The more I think about this game, the more it does kind of scare me for these Seattle wide receivers. And I will say, first off, I think they can do whatever they want this week. I don't think that matters. This Seattle defense is horrible. It's really bad, and they're missing Jamal Adams on top of it. They're starting, can't remember whatever. They had that linebacker with the one hand. Whoever the quarterback brother is, he's the worst corner in the league so far this year, giving up the most yards. If Minnesota's able to do whatever they want as well in this game, I think they're going to try to melt the clock. And if you just limit possessions, it's annoying. And I think that could happen to Seattle this week. I think Seattle. It's going to be one of those times where I feel like Seattle gets the ball once in the second quarter, and it's like a 2-minute touchdown drive or something. but Minnesota dominates the time of possession and loses still. That's the kind of game it feels like to me. But by no means does that mean to sit either player. It doesn't mean to do anything but start them with confidence. That's more so for DFS maybe. Just maybe it's not as good of a game to target as it does on the SIS. Going down the rankings here, I know for sure a notable one is where I have Robbie Anderson ranked. I have him at number 12 overall, and I have DJ Moore at number 19 overall. That's flipped from pretty much any other rankings I've seen, and I think I did that last week as well. It's just DJ Moore's not producing right now, and I don't think that means you need to get rid of him. I definitely don't think you should sell him because you'd be selling low. It's just Matt Rule loves Robbie Anderson. He brought him there for a reason. He's calling plays for him. So I think he's the number one receiver in Carolina. I'm interested to hear what your guys' thoughts are, though, on those two wide receivers specifically. Trevor, you can start with that.
Could you repeat the receivers? I'm sorry. I was looking at 22.
Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. Obviously, DJ Moore was borderline top 10 coming into the season, and nobody touched Robbie Anderson. But now it's very clearly flipped. But people are freaking out about DJ Moore and still ranking him above Anderson.
I would move Anderson. Quarterbacks have favorites. We all know that. So far, it's been abundantly clear that Bridgewater favors Anderson. And even if their shares are the same, Anderson's doing more with them. He's just been really effective. This is kind of what I thought he'd be able to do with the Jets last year. Went completely off the hype train, and now looks like he's back. Good for him. DJ Moore just seems like more of that, a baby version of Michael Thomas, the 5-yard slants kind of a little bit in a sense. Hey, when you have backs that can do that same thing as well. The quarterback who likes throwing those, maybe take the occasional shot deep to Anderson. There's not as big of a role people think for Moore. I don't think it's going to change.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. Robbie Anderson is unquestionably receiver in Carolina right now. Teddy Bridgewater is bad quarterback, competent quarterback, number one receiver of the ball. Robbie Anderson is just getting targets on targets, and he's turning those into receptions. He said 6 receptions, 5 receptions, 8 receptions. The only thing that worries me is only saw the end zone That was week one. But I think that he's a big play guy. He'll find the end zone, on a play action bomb or something like that. I'm starting Robbie Anderson in my couple leagues this week. So I'm very high of Robbie Anderson going forward.
And the matchup's sweet. I mean, it's at Atlanta. I think you can start both players this week with pretty, relatively high confidence, at least for Moore. But yeah, I think wide receiver 2 for Robbie Anderson seems like a lock. Trevor, you were looking at Juju Smith-Schuster at 22. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. We all agree this Big Ben game against this Philly team. Their defense did not impress me. I like Juju Smith-Schuster. I think it's one of those games where people are gonna go off. People are gonna go crazy about him, and the hype's gonna be back. I think he'll be a good player. The ranking isn't bad. I'm not going to say the ranking's bad because it's really tough. Ben loves utilizing as many cards as he can. But I think he's going to want to make a statement. He's going to go to his number one guy. I think Juju's one heck of a play, especially as a wide receiver. Wide receiver 2. That's one heck of a play.
Yeah, totally on board with that. Especially because we talked about the Steelers were pissed off had to use bye week in week 4. They're a good team. I think the Steelers.
Schuster they can rely on. I see Deontay Johnson at 28. Or is this going to be like a one guy kind of thing?
I think Deontay Johnson and I think Eric Ebron has a pretty nice game. We are back live now. That's cool. Jake, by the way, was saying that you two were echoing. It's not echoing for me though, so I'm not sure. I don't know. We'll just push through and we'll figure it out later. Looks like we're live again, so that's good. But yeah, I like Juju Smith-Schuster. I like the whole passing attack. Deontay Johnson though, at one point was the most targeted receiver in the game. So I would assume he gets big targets again this week. But yeah, Eric Ebron has been on the field, I think, for like 75 or 80% of their passing plays or something. So I think he's going to have a game pretty soon where he just kind of takes off and people freak out about him. But speaking of Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm higher on him than the industry consensus. I am 4 spots higher. But yeah, I have full confidence in him as a wide receiver 2, so maybe I should put him higher than 22 is where I have him. Yeah, I don't know. He's in that range though. Robbie Anderson, I'm higher on. We already talked about him. I am 6 spots higher. Mike Evans, I don't know if people didn't update their rankings or something. I am 13 spots higher, so I have him at 14. People have him at 27. I don't think he's great this week, but I mean, he needs to be started as a wide receiver 2 at least. Darius Slayton for the Giants. I like him to have a big week. I have him at 21. That's 4 spots higher. Russell Gage, I have 6 spots higher. Obviously, Julio Jones news will change that ranking for everybody. But here's one to touch on. AJ Green, I have ranked 37. That's 4 spots higher than the consensus. Obviously, AJ Green's been terrible, right? This used to be a matchup where if AJ Green plays Baltimore, you start him without even thinking. And like I knew there was a good stat, so I went and looked. So he's played Baltimore 11 times in his career, and he's scored 9 touchdowns. He's averaged 80.5 yards against them. He dominates the Ravens every single time he plays them, even when it has been tough matchups, and obviously Andy Dalton at quarterback and this or that. While this is a different AJ Green, this is a different Ravens, different quarterback, different system, different everything. I'll play the trends. I'll put him up there at least at 37. I don't care. If he disappoints again this week, I think full drop him. That's where I'm at. T. Higgins obviously has outperformed him. I know we talked before, and I said I would prefer T. Higgins rest of season. Obviously, that's looking better now. Every single game that AJ Green disappoints. Luke, I think you had a decision in one of your leagues with the two, right? What's your thoughts on T. Higgins and AJ Green?
So just to bring that up, I think on the show last week I said it's on you to lose my matches because AJ Green outscored Higgins. Luckily, Higgins outscored AJ Green. I won my matchup by just the amount of points that T. Higgins outscored AJ Green. So I've been saying this whole year that I think T. Higgins is a new AJ Green. I think they're going to work him against the Ravens. They're going to want to see what he can do against good defenses. They're going to try to get him the ball. Coming off a win too, where he played well last week. I don't see why they would try to go away with what got Joe Burrow his first NFL win. Like I said, I think there's a connection between Burrow and Higgins. I think that's a connection that can be strong for the next 5 to 7 years in the NFL. AJ Green, I mean, he's like we talked about Gronkowski, how he's not playing very well. He's going to have one good week, and everyone's like, this is why I held on to him. I think that's going to come for AJ Green, but I don't think that the trend continue. I don't see it this week. Joe Burrow just does not impress me throwing AJ Green the ball.
I would agree. I wasn't really the biggest T. Higgins fan when I got out of college either. I thought he was good. I didn't think he was that good, but boy, he's really impressed. And like you touched on, Luke, his chemistry with Burrow is definitely impressive. Well, the track record is good for AJ Green. As a lot of people say, streaks are meant to be broken. I don't think he'll have a terrible game, but I don't think he's going to have a game that we're used to seeing from AJ Green against Baltimore.
Agreed completely. I'll probably change it by the end of the week. It's just a happy thought right now. Wide receivers I'm lower on, between 4 to 6 spots lower on all these guys. Robert Woods, 4 spots lower. Terry McLaurin, 4 spots lower. I have Woods at 16, McLaurin at 17. DJ Moore 19, that's 4 spots lower. CeeDee Lamb on 4 spots lower, have him at 25. Justin Jefferson, I should probably bring up. I don't know where I have him ranked, like what players he's around, but I have him at 27, which is 4 spots lower. Michael Gallup, 6 spots lower. T. Higgins, 6 spots lower. Emmanuel Sanders, 4. A.J. Brown, 4. Out of that group, I guess, I know I kind of went through them fast. Which one of those players do you think needs to be moved up most, guys?
Probably. Go ahead, Luke.
I don't have an answer, but I just had a question. What the deciding factor on was CeeDee Lamb ahead of Michael Gallup.
Do I have? Oh, why over CeeDee Lamb over Gallup? Gallup isn't.
Yeah.
Gallup is pretty much the X receiver that runs a straight line, and Dak Prescott doesn't look that way. Mostly because it's the third read, and Dak doesn't know how to work through those. People like to praise Dak for his passing yards this year. He hasn't had a good season, and he's just not working through his progressions very well, and he's not finding Gallup, and that's it. I mean, it's just workload. It's just usage.
Fair.
I would move Justin Jefferson a little bit. He's got Julian Edelman at 26, at least on the version I'm looking at. I don't know if you updated it. He's got Deontay Johnson 28. Seattle secondary is bad. He went off. I would move him up, and two of the names that you mentioned, CeeDee Lamb and Gallup. I like both of them a lot. But there's so many options there, and like you said, Prescott is not going through his progressions as well as you would like to see. Both are going to have their great weeks, but man, it's tough to rely on any of those guys. It really is. Even if they might put up wide receiver 10 numbers.
And I want to find this stat really quick that I brought up about the Cowboys yesterday, I think, just because somebody was talking up Dak Prescott. And, okay, here we go. So, obviously, every talking head is talking about how terrible the Cowboys' defense is and how amazing the offense is. If only the Cowboys had a defense, they'd be a Super Bowl team, yada, yada. Cowboys are the 18th ranked first half offense in the entire league. They are the third worst offense in first half time of possession. And they are tied for the most giveaways per game. So, while the defense isn't good, defense is terrible. Obviously, the offense isn't putting them in good position, and Dak Prescott looks awesome when he plays against prevent defenses, which Atlanta was in for a lot of that game, and Seattle obviously was in for a lot of that game. And this offense isn't as good as people want to give credit for. And trust me, I will find the nitpick, every little thing to talk about how bad Mike McCarthy's offense is. You're welcome. Because now I get to bash the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy in the same thing, and it's beautiful.
An interesting thing to point out about this Dallas offense too is Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's only averaging something like 70 rushing yards per game. So that's another interesting thing. And if he's not getting the running game going as much, that puts extra onus on Prescott, like you said. So.
Yeah, and I think that just comes down to the typical Mike McCarthy abandoning the strength type of thing. And we saw Jason Garrett do it with Zeke last year as well. But yeah, looking at the stats right now, Zeke ran the ball 22 times each in his first 2 games. That's great. Against Seattle, he ran it 14 times. Against Cleveland, he ran it 12 times. And Seattle, there's no excuse. Cleveland's a good run defense. But still, if that game, I understand that the Cowboys need a pass to catch up to the Browns because they were down huge. That's not okay, man. You have to run the football. You have to take pressure off of Dak. You have to do stuff like that. That offense needs to go through Zeke. Any other wide receivers to touch on before we wrap up with these tight ends quickly?
I just want to know you guys' thoughts on Marquise Brown at Baltimore. Is he one of those guys who's either top five receiver every week or bottom five receiver every week? Like Deshaun Jackson kind of guy.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
I had high hopes for him coming into this year because rookie season he didn't have an off season like a mini camp or anything because he was hurt. So I figured he would take big steps this year, and it just hasn't been the case. I will say, I do think Lamar Jackson has taken steps backwards as a passer. So I don't think this is all on Marquise Brown. But he does seem boom or bust, touchdown dependent type of player, and he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. So, yeah.
Took the words out of my mouth on that one.
Lamar Jackson, I don't know what you guys think, but he hasn't looked very good this year.
No.
I was watching quickly Pat McAfee show today, and
Yes.
I watch it every day. But they were talking about how Lamar Jackson was, absent from practice, and that's a big deal. And one of the guys said that it's not that big a deal. Wide receivers were just kind of working on routes and stuff, so they needed someone who could actually pass them the ball. So might as well sit out. Anyways, let's go to tight ends here. George Kittle returned last week and did not disappoint. He's my number 1 tight end for this week against the Dolphins. Travis Kelce, number 2 against the Raiders. Mark Andrews, 3rd against the Bengals. Darren Waller at the Chiefs is number 4, and Hunter Henry at the Saints is number 5. I will say my number 6 because I do think it's noteworthy. I have Dalton Schultz at number 6. I don't know what his ownership is, but he should be treated as a tight end 1 going forward, in my opinion. What do you think about those 6, Luke?
Yeah. I say it every week. Tight ends, dime a dozen. The top 6 are the top 6. Top 5 are the top 5. George Kittle actually won me the matchup, my first win in the Vampire League last week. I was out of quarterback with Ben Roethlisberger, so thank you to George Kittle. Travis Kelce's going to get his. Mark Andrews going to get his. And then I talked before how I'm doubling up on Hunter Henry Monday Night Football. I don't think the Saints defense is stellar. We talked about Justin Herbert losing safety blankets. Hunter Henry is fully healthy for what seems like the first time in his career. And I think that's the number one safety blanket on the Chargers this week. So I'm full on board with Hunter Henry this week.
Yeah, same here. I think him and Allen are going to get peppered with targets. And I'm glad he brought up Dalton Schultz. At least this is just Yahoo. Only rostered by 62%. I don't understand that. I knew he'd be good, but I did not expect that. PPR 21-8-17 points wise. So he's definitely a good six. I'm glad he brought him up because I think a lot of people are not really talking about how good of a job he's doing. Arguably, better than what Blake Jarwin was looking like at times last season.
Well, I think it goes to exactly what we talked about. Why Dalton Schultz was so good last week, I think was with you two. I know Luke was there for sure, but we have CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup, who are all field stretchers. That's fine. I mean, they should have someone who can play a different role. Dalton Schultz is underneath. Like, those three run straight. He can run underneath and soak up targets and thrive, similar to what Randall Cobb did last year. Blake Jarwin, more of a field stretcher. He tried to find some space in the seams, and that didn't work ever really. He'd catch like one pass per game. So I think Schultz is a better fit for this offense, to be completely honest, as well. But yeah, he needs to be treated as a tight end 1 going forward. And I would assume that players like Rob Gronkowski are owned in like 30% more leagues than him, and stuff like that. And it's just name value is so important at this position more than any other, really, especially once you get past the top 3 guys. Luke, you're a big Jimmy Graham guy. What did he do last week? He wasn't terrible.
No.
Not much.
4 catches, 33 yards. I'm at tight end 12 this week, I believe. Or do I have low? Man, I should probably move him down. What's your thoughts on Jimmy Graham this week?
So I know a lot of people were high on Jimmy Graham last week. Just coming off the 60 yards, 2 touchdown game. It's a shame that maybe is something common with Nick Foles. The 4 for 33 is not good, but what I like about it is the 4 receptions. It's the second most receptions of the year this year. I was hoping that Allen Robinson touchdown at the end of the week went to him, but that's how fantasy football works, I guess. I think he's start worthy this week. He's got a better matchup with Tampa Bay than Indianapolis last week. Nick Foles still needs someone to throw the ball to. I know he's going to throw it out. Allen Robinson's there. But with Tariq Cohen out and David Montgomery not playing well, I still think Jimmy Graham is, still the red zone guy.
Yeah, he certainly should
be.
Yeah. You can go.
No, I was just agreeing with that.
Yeah, if the Bears find themselves in games where it should be high scoring, I think Jimmy Graham needs to be in your lineup. I just don't know if that's this Thursday matchup with Tampa Bay. Because if Jimmy Graham doesn't score a touchdown, I can't imagine he's going to rack up a ton of yards and stuff, Because he's another guy, much like Todd Gurley, he can't really do much after the catch. And I'll move on from that point since the Gurley boys are here, I guess. Mo Alley
Gurley guys.
Gurley boys. My bad. That was more insulting than it should have been. Mo Alley Cox pissed me off last week because I ranked him low just because of usage. Everyone was freaking out about him. Then he catches 1 pass for a touchdown. So he finished as tight end. What did he finish for PPR? Tight end 17 for PPR, tight end 10 for standard because he caught 1 pass and a 17-yard pass. It's not like he went crazy. Oh, okay, so let me bring up compared to the consensus because I would assume I'm lower on him again. I guess not. I'm just higher on Jack Doyle. Jack Doyle is the more used tight end, especially in the passing game. Okay, you guys say your thoughts on him to figure out how many snaps Trey Burton played last week, because that could really throw a wrench into some things. So Luke, into Mo Alley Cox, obviously 2 weeks ago had a huge performance for 2 weeks in a row, I guess. What's your thought on him going forward? Is he a full drop or no?
I think so. I think Jack Doyle coming back to the offense. I know he's been here and there, but I think you brought it up to more snaps. I think he's going to be much more. They're going to want to get him going. Mo Alley Cox, we talked about how he played well in the absence, but he's a run blocker. He's the Mercedes Lewis of the Colts. I don't expect him to see more than 2 receptions in any game for the upcoming week, barring injury. I would fully drop. I dropped him for Dalton Schultz in the waiver wire last night. So
yeah, I agree. And the thing about tight ends that I've noticed, and I'm sure a lot of people have too, they really pay close attention to fantasy matchups. Is usually you don't need great production from your tight end. Usually you just need a guy that's going to get you a couple points, just somebody that doesn't put up a goose egg. Mo Alley Cox is going to give you some weeks. He's going to be great. He's going to catch those touchdowns. But the risk of getting 0 and having no points, it's just too high. I think you drop him too.
Here's a stat that'll make you stay away from all these guys. So, snaps for all 3 tight ends. This is including Trey Burton last week against the Bears. Jack Doyle played 45. Trey Burton played 36. Mo Alley Cox played 33. And that's out of 72. In terms of routes ran, Jack Doyle ran 14. Trey Burton ran 19. Mo Alley Cox ran 8. And of course, the one resulted in the touchdown that made people believe he's still a legit option, which is fine, I guess, but whatever. Seeing if there's any more takeaways from this game in terms of wide receiver snaps. Zach Pascal, he didn't do anything great, but he played just as many snaps as T.Y. Hilton as the starter, 54 for each. If you're in a super deep league, I guess maybe he's an option to look at, but outside of that, nothing. Jonathan Taylor played 33 snaps to Hines' 25, and Wilkins 12. Frustrating. He's still the bell cow. Anyways, any tight ends you want?
I just have a question real quick. Not with tight ends, just kind of in general. Do you think there's anyone on the Colts that you need to have on your team other than Jonathan Taylor?
I was so high on T.Y. Hilton coming into the year that I don't want to give up on him, but he's clearly not looking great. And Philip Rivers, while he is known for forcing the ball into places it shouldn't be, the one place it seems like he doesn't need to force it is to T.Y. Hilton. So, I mean, if you can stash him, I'd like that, but there's no specific reason to him. Like, I'm not starting him any week soon.
One tight end that I'd really like to talk about, and I told Jake to pick up Tanyan last week, so I got a 1 week streak, longest streak of the year on tight ends. I had to play him in Yahoo, that's why I lost that hurt a little bit. But one guy I'm really have this week is Eric Ebron against Philly. We saw what Kittle did coming back from injury with not a good quarterback. Ebron plays the same Philly defense. And he's got Ben throwing to him, and his offense should be on more of the field because his defense is good. I think this is a big game for Ebron. Obviously, I don't think he's going to put up 120 receiving yards. I think there's a very good chance he puts up one touchdown. Heck, this could be one of those games where he just goes off, maybe even has two. Keep your eyes on him. He's definitely not a bad guy to pick up for one week.
And to your Tanyan point, that was a good call, especially with Mercedes Lewis out. Next week, I'll be able to down talk Robert Tanyan a little bit for fantasy, but I'll put that to rest for right now. Eric Ebron, I think, is a good point, or a good call. And I bring up his snaps here. He's ran 90 routes on 121 passing plays, and I really like that. Obviously, a good matchup against Philly. I think they'll have to pass it, and I think Eric Ebron is going to have plenty of chances to score. I would assume he is one of the top red zone targets if they get there. I like Eric Ebron. Luke, what's your thoughts on him while I look up where he's lined up this year?
Yeah, I got Eric Ebron. I was in the process of writing the article for my number one on tight end streamers this week. I think Eric Ebron might be the ultimate. Is this the Eric Ebron guy in the NFL? I feel like ever since he's been drafted, I've been saying this is the Eric Ebron week. I think this is the week. This time I really think it's the week. Just based off of pissed off Ben Roethlisberger, seeing what George Kittle did. Obviously, we know George Kittle, but seeing what George Kittle did against Philadelphia. I think Eric Ebron's in for a big week along with Juju Smith-Schuster. I think if you have both, you can play both this week.
I completely agree to that. And Eric Ebron is used in a similar way to, if you think of Mike Gesicki, I guess, with the Dolphins, where they move him around everywhere. He's mostly playing in tight, obviously, 34, 33, 42 for snaps. He's played 5 snaps, 15, and then 11 snaps in the slot, which is good. And Deontay Johnson obviously went out hurt, I believe, in the Week 3 game. Missed some time at least, and during that game he played 7 snaps out wide. So if someone else goes down, it sure seems like Tomlin and Roethlisberger trust him enough to get him in there and try to create some kind of mismatches, which is nice. I don't think he's a massive blocker by any means. I don't think he's going to kill anybody with that. So if for some reason this game gets out of hand and the Eagles fall way behind, maybe we see more McDonald. But we also could see double tight end sets. So I don't know. I really like the Eric Ebron call. He should be good this week. Hope so. Because, I'm definitely on him as well. In terms of, in comparison to the consensus, I guess we could start with Eric Ebron. I have him at 14. That's 4 spots higher. I have Chris Herndon at 16. That's 5 spots higher. I think Joe Flacco leans on him a little bit. I have Jack Doyle at 22, 4 spots higher. That may come down after looking at those snaps. But even still, if I'm ranking the 3 Colts tight ends, I think I'm going to keep putting him highest. And then Cameron Brate, I have at 26. That's 4 spots higher. We saw O.J. Howard go down for the season. Cameron Brate is going to step up and at least play more snaps. I feel like Cameron Brate's probably going to frustrate all the Rob Gronkowski owners and outperform him now. In terms of players I have less or ranked lower is only one. That's Tyler Eifert. I have him 5 spots lower than the consensus. At number 28, Eifert hasn't done shit. So I'm fine with that. I played him last week in DFS because I bought into the revenge game narrative that I created for him, against the Bengals. It didn't work out. Any of those guys I talked about that I'm higher on that you think should be, I should be lower on, or vice versa, I guess?
Just looking at here, really no. I'm still not on the Chris Herndon hype train here. I know 16 is not a high tight end spot.
Sure.
Joe Flacco, you probably get a bunch of targets from Joe Flacco this week, but I don't think he's giving you anything after the catch or anything like that. Although Arizona has been known to give up lots of points to opposing tight ends, so maybe there's something there. Otherwise, that I don't know. Tight ends are just like once you get under the top 14, then they're tough to rank, tough to predict what's going to happen this week.
Yeah, I was huge on the Chris Herndon hype going into the year. Really outside of week one, 6 receptions for 37 yards, and a fumble. Other than that, he had, 5 receptions for 37 yards over the past 3 games. I'm not on it. Joe Flacco, I think he'll add a little bit of value, but this team is such a dumpster fire. I wouldn't trust anybody. I think Bell will take some passes from him as well. So I'd put him a little lower. Not too low because of that ability, but a little lower.
And Herndon had some bad drops last week, so stats could look a little bit better, but I mean, it's not something to rank him higher for, because he may continue to drop passes. Just talking about Chris Herndon in that game, though, it reminded me of the Frank Gore fade at the goal line that Adam Gase called, and that was my favorite play I think of all time. It was perfect. Like everybody was to throw a fade to it. It's Frank Gore. That has to be first time ever.
I was playing in a league, and my opponent had Frank Gore, and I'm like, I'm all set. And then I see them throw a fade, and I'm like, holy shit, that was Frank Gore. I'm like, are you kidding me? I said, they better not hit this guy. Holy smokes.
Oh, so angry. Because I put a bet on anytime touchdown for Frank Gore, obviously, like I have for 4 weeks now. And I did a double touchdown because it was like plus 4,000 or something. I'm like, oof, money, free money.
Right.
But yeah, they threw a fade to him. Like, oh my God, he's gonna have one of the games. This is it. But no, it's this week against Arizona, he's got it. Last tight end, unless you guys have more to talk about, the last one I want to bring up here, Austin Hooper. Last week was his best game of the season. Not that it's saying a ton, but he had 7 targets for 34 yards and a touchdown, all season highs. The other weeks, for yards, he's had 15, 22, and 25. So 34 is not a big jump, especially in a high-scoring game like this. But did last week do anything for your confidence level on Austin Hooper, or is he still just a guy that's tough to start with?
I still don't think that Austin Hooper is a great tight end. I don't think he's that good of a football player, to be honest. It's a lot of players on that Browns offense. We saw Odell have a great game last week. Maybe with Nick Chubb out, but still they have Kareem Hunt. I'm trying to talk myself into Austin Hooper here. I don't think so. The 5 catches is nice, but the 34 yards is nice. This was a week he got saved by a touchdown fantasy owners if you started him. It's a tough matchup in Indianapolis, especially with their linebackers. I don't think Austin Hooper I don't want to think about Austin for the rest of the year. I don't think. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
He's certainly making the $10.5 million per year look like one heck of a deal. I don't buy Hooper. I mean, I've talked about this before. We all have. Look at Cleveland with Njoku. He'd do this every once in a while too, where he'd have a good game and he'd just go back to the floor. For whatever reason, this team doesn't love getting their tight ends involved. And so I don't think he's worth a touch or a look, to be honest.
And by the way, I almost forgot to bring that up. I was sneaky in a lot of leagues this week and picked up David Njoku, and I am hearing he is going to be back this week. So especially if he's back, I'm fully off Austin Hooper. Yeah, in terms of receiving and production, fantasy stats, Austin Hooper is going to be a dumpster fire this year, I think. He's a great blocker, and he's doing exactly what Cleveland needs. So I guess he's a good asset for their team, but he's just not a guy we need to play. And I'm going to redo my rankings here. Obviously, there's going to be an update, but just there's a pretty big ranking gap between Austin Hooper and someone like Jonnu Smith down at 17. And especially with the Corey Davis news now. Corey Davis put on the COVID list, so pretty much for sure he's not playing even if that game goes. I would rather play Jonnu Smith over him, for sure. Any other tight ends you guys want to bring up here?
No, just looking at here. You think there's any value against Greg Olsen against that bad sort of defense?
Yeah, I think there's some value. I think they are capable of covering the tight ends fairly well. I just think there's more value for this passing attack on the outside with, the two wide receivers we talked about. And if I'm worried about the two wide receivers at all, in terms of possessions and stuff like that, then I'm even more worried about Greg Olsen, who I guess at best is their fourth pass catcher after Chris Carson as well. But yeah, he's quietly being somewhat productive, especially for PPR leagues right now. So he's a guy that definitely should be on the radar of more people than I think he is. Looking at his PPR finishes per week, 11 in week 1, 80 in week 2. He was targeted just that one time. That was a pick 6. That was his fault. And then tight end 10, tight end 16. So sneaky wide receiver or tight end 1 option, I guess, this year, which is interesting. Without a touchdown, right?
Yeah, I don't think he scored this week or this year.
Week 1 he did, but that's it.
You're right.
Yeah, 6 and 7 targets the past 2 weeks. If it turns into a shootout, he's going to be targeted, I think. So I think that's a decent call. And if you're playing DFS, I think he's probably a pretty cheap option to plug in there and you should get some targets. Anything else before we go enjoy the night?
Be nice to enjoy some football this week. That I don't have to sit and worry about the Packers losing their win streak now.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. No kidding. I shouldn't have doubted them as much as I did last week, but they came out and definitely looked good.
Well, hey, they did. First of all, they did have to play Todd Gurley, so you always got to be cautious. But outside of that, I'm looking forward to this NFC North. They should be dropping a couple games. So looking forward to that as a Packer fan.
Yeah, I'm sure Matt Rule's been unable to sleep, just trying to design how could he stop Todd Gurley from breaking off those 5-yard runs. Yeah, we can talk about that more later in the week. I'm sure this is going to be a running theme now, so I can't wait. Have a good night, anyone still watching. Talk to you tomorrow. We will be back. Later.